Thank you, councillors. Can you take a seat, please? Well, good afternoon, your worship councillors. Welcome to our Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting. Today, the 17th of March 2016. Welcome also to the press, members of the public, staff, and we do have some visitors that I will introduce shortly. And of course, we are streaming live, so to those out there, kia ora, welcome, and thank you for taking part in listening to our meeting this afternoon. So apologies please, we do have apologies from Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Stewart, who are here shortly. Are there any further apologies? Thank you. Yes, Councillor, did you? I'll see you now, you. Just like to notify I'll be leaving at 4. Thank you. You may all be defeated. All coming well. Thank you very much. So it's been moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by your worship. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Carl, thank you. Urgent business. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a minor item. At the council meeting on the 25th of February, it was resolved under item 5.1 that the sworn affidavit that I tabled in conjunction to Councillor Chadwick's dismissal should be affixed to the minutes of the 17th of December meeting. Can I ask the Chief Executive please when that is going to be actioned, because it still hasn't been.
Yes, I remember that release actually. I do remember, do recall that. I'll just I recall the request was made.
Councillor, we have actually looked at that. The issue that we have is that whilst you've asked that to be attached to the minutes, actually that was not a motion that was put, nor was it a request that was accepted formally by the chair. So at that point, we're actually in a little bit of a dilemma, because without the leave of the chair to do so, we just simply on a request can't actually take that action.
Madam Chair, I have before me the minutes printed this morning from the 25th of February Council meeting website. It states here under item 5.1, ordinary council meeting the 17th of December, resolved that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting on the 17th of December be confirmed as true and correct record with the following correction. The sworn affidavit tabled of the meeting be attached. It was approved.
Thank you. One, I think if that's in the minutes, if that is in the minutes, thank you. So I'd like to think that can be action then. Thank you. Councillor Gould, do you have an item of urgent business?
Yes, Madam Chair, I did bring up the last meeting about a month ago, and there's been a huge number of complaints on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. They're not so really nice night. So can we get a further update to the councillors as what's happening, or the need for delay, or because the residents in the Oakwood area are not very happy anymore.
Thank you. And there is work that's being undertaken by the council, and as soon as that has been completed, then I'm sure we will get an update on that. But everybody around this table is very conscious of what's happening out there in Tier 9, and we do want to make sure that the business is given every opportunity to do what they can to mitigate the noise and any other factors that have come to light. So, but I know that the staff are working alongside them, and also keeping the community informed as well. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Gould. Thank you. Now we'll start this afternoon with a presentation from the Waikato Regional Council, and this is on your draft, or their draft annual plan. It's an update, and presenting this afternoon. Good afternoon, Paula. Paula Southgate, you're the chair, aren't you, Paula, of the Waikato Regional Council? Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, and I'll get started how with this.
someone there.
Somebody who knows more about technology than me, I hope. But thank you very much in the meantime for the invitation to come and talk personally to our annual plan proposals. And I give my apologies for Councillor Cathy White and also staff Tracy May, who were here this morning, and we had a little bit of a miscommunication around time. But not to worry, I had a lovely brunch, a lovely lunch with my brother who's here, so all was not lost. So as you're aware, thank you. Okay, as you're aware, the new changes in the Local Government Act means we haven't been able to consult on things of significance, so I'll cut to the chase, and you understand that anyway, that we've only got 3 issues that we're consulting on this year. The Regional Emergency Services Fund, which will be of interest to you. Changes to water tank consents, which will also have an impact on you. And the Tauhei Flood Protection Project, which won't. This is a targeted rate on our flood stream in Tauhei. But anyway, I'll probably just skip over that one unless you're interested in that. So starting with the most interesting proposal, because of its newness, is the Regional Services Fund that we're proposing to establish. Essentially, it's not a new fund, it's an agreement to transfer the funding collection for surf lifesaving, Coast Guard, and at this point in time, air ambulance services, and pick that rate up regionally rather than have those services go out to 12 different authorities, cap in hand, asking for a certain amount of money each year, sometimes being lucky, sometimes being unlucky, and having any consistency around that. Just to put some background to that though, this isn't something that the Waikato Council has dreamed up to do as a regional service. It evolved as a conversation. Actually, it first started in a Zone 2 meeting, and that was possibly, 2 years ago? Yeah, so we started talking about it softly then. Then I took it to the Waikato Mayoral Forum. We debated whether this was the way of driving efficiency and effectiveness, and it's only a small scale, but there's some way we can show that joining up works well together. It was also considered a more equitable and effective way of collecting. So not only do the charities themselves not have to come to multiple agencies, not certain of their funding every given year, we would spread the rate across the regional ratepayer on the basis that we believe it provides regional benefit, and that was something that was agreed on from the mayors that attend the Mayoral Forum. I'm not sure, Mayor Chadwick, what your view will be on it, but I'll be interested to get some feedback. So a regional rate basically makes the assumption that most regional ratepayers either have access to those services. They go to a beach, you might argue, you go more to the Banffenti than the Waikato beaches, but I think it's probably horses for courses. There's a general spread of where people go, lakes and beaches, the air ambulance, and of course the Coast Guard. So we were quite clear in our criteria that the money must be used to the voluntary services that help save lives. So we're not interested in funding capital, new surf clubs or the like, and that we enter into a service level agreement before we fund, which would be overseen by the Mayoral Forum. So this again is not the regional council determining how much money will be allocated. It is a neutral thing which the Mayoral Forum would have some oversight of. We have accountability and reporting framework that goes with that. So what does it mean in terms of money? There are 3 options being proposed. We didn't put the best wish list of those organisations as an option. We discounted that one. I guess they may or may not be happy with that. But we've gone for the status quo and the middle option. So this option, which would be $2.07 per property, you can see how it's proportioned there. This option does not include the emergency helicopter because that was political. Some people felt the helicopter should be in, some people felt it should be out. And I'll be interested to see what your views of what should be in and out shortly. Second option, which is the council's preferred option. This is after being through a little working party of the Mayoral Forum, come to our council had some feedback on that. So as you can see, it's proposing 100,000 to Coast Guard, an existing level of service to surf lifesaving, and split between the two helicopter services, and it occurred to me you may be also serviced by a different helicopter service. So there may be a conversation around that. There was a lot of conversation around Auckland helicopter because, you know, it originates in Auckland, but we are reliably informed by statistics that it does service the Coromandel a great deal and right down into the central North Island at times. So happy to have a conversation or some feedback from yourselves as to explain where you get your air ambulance services from. So that's the second option, and the third option is a little bit more. It's a little bit more to Coast Guard, and it's a little bit more of funding to the surf lifesaving. Given that they have indicated that they struggle, and they have indicated that they would like to establish on some really dangerous parts of our region some new patrols. Remember, we're only funding the voluntary emergency services. We're not doing any capital, and there's the helicopters. So that's that. I might pause if you like and take questions on that, because I think it will be of interest. Those ratepayers of yours that fall into our Waikato region will be affected by either the $2 or $3 proposal. Any questions?
Councillor Donaldson.
Through you, Madam Chair. Chairman Paula, is there a discussion with the beneficiary entities?
Yeah.
Is there an accepted, do they accept that this would be their one cut in local government for funding? They wouldn't be going, if this went through, that they would be targeting the TMAs?
That's right, that's correct. We've made it a condition of the funding that the mayors with mayor reform agree not to rate their ratepayers for the same service. The only possibility for something like the Coromandel would be if they chose to do capital funding, which we exclude from this, build a new surf lifesaving club somewhere. Then I guess they're allowed to consider that with whether their ratepayers are interested in that or not. But we certainly don't want any double rating.
Your Worship.
Thanks for that, Paula. This looks like a very similar model to Auckland Council, but would that targeted rate be about the same as charged in Auckland?
I'm not certain, because we did a business case analysis with the organisation, so they provided their needed amount of money and their wish list of money as well. And so we looked through the criteria of what they provided us in the business case and derived what we would be prepared to fund. I have to say they're probably after a little bit more money, to be honest, so I will not be surprised if the submissions come in and say you should have put the higher option on there, which was, just for your interest, was around $5 per ratepayer. But we believe we are partner funder, not a whole funder.
And would that also, it's a bit along the lines of Councillor Donaldson, would that also preclude you going to community funders for support?
No, we would expect them to go wherever they need to for the rest of their funding. Any other questions on that one?
Thank you. I'm conscious of the time, so Paula, you've got about another 10 minutes, is that correct? Thank you. Yes, Dave.
So, just to be clear, the option 3 there, that's one payment per rateable property,
Yes.
whatever, regardless of their value,
Yes.
per year.
Yes.
It's a fund the service at the cost of a long rate fund.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Councillor Whipper.
Madam Chair, and I'm on the Waikato Liaison Subcommittee, and yesterday this came up, quite an interesting discussion on our ratepayer scores from Rotorua, Waikiki Valley, and places like that. So my question is, have we talked to them prior to this? Because the initial reaction yesterday was not favourable. It's just, I guess, the distance, just the principle. I think they didn't favour it very particularly at all. Have we had previous consultation with those groups?
With the general public?
Yeah.
Because this is a proposal that before it could even get to this stage needed buy-in of the mayoral forum, because if it wasn't of interest to any of the TLAs, we weren't going there.
Okay, so this is the first option.
And this is a genuine opportunity for consultation. We acknowledge there may be, I think there's three things for council to look at. One is the quantum. The second thing is the criteria. Have we got that quite right to cover the sort of things you think we should cover? And then the accountability. And do note that if we were to make any amendment to the quantum or to the services included, maybe in the future something like voluntary fire service or whatever, that would be done through LTP and would also have gone through a mayoral forum consultation process first. So we don't see this as our process, we see this as a shared process with the mayoral forum.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Schmidt.
Question there. I'm sure you're aware, Paul, that the two air ambulances that service this district and Taupo are situated in Taupo and Rotorua.
Yes.
They don't figure in this funding at all.
They may not, and that may be a point of submission that they could. It's not to say that they couldn't proportionally feature. I think it's a point well made. And we just so you know, other councils have also raised things like volunteer fire service, possibly St John's. But that's a question for the public to consider what our role in those areas are, and we certainly wouldn't be proposing that without coming back to all the councils, including yourself.
Thank you.
So I'll move on to the water charges, because that one is of interest to you. So we're making a change to the way we charge for freshwater tax. Now this is not for the quantum of the water, we don't charge for quantum of water. This is for our administrative and monitoring services over the water that people do take through consents. We're going for a couple of options. The current rate is 44 cents per cubic metre up to 30,000 cubes and 12 cents thereafter. This is a bit of a reduction, and because of the number of people who actually got consent, so the more people spread the cost across. We have noticed that there was a little bit of an inequity in having such a large step in some of our charging previously, where if you had under 10,000 cubic metres, you'd be charged roughly around $7.50, and if you had 10,001 cubic metres, you'd be much more like over 10,000. So it's such a huge. So this is an opportunity to go to a more predated water take charge. But we got a little bit of pushback from the irrigators, and so we've come up with a number of options for consideration. So this is the first option, which is probably the current method of applying charges. The second option, which has become the Environment Council's preferred, is a 65 minimum fee for small users, and those above that minimum would be charged at 37 cents per cubic metre, 12 cents afterwards. So small users would all have to pay 65 regardless of what they're currently paying now. So that would be maybe dairy shed or something like that. The next option is $100 flat fee for the minimum and a 30 cents to 13 cents threshold after that. There's the numbers of small users that would be affected. There'll be about 3,200 dairy shed users affected by that change, and they'd all have to pay the minimum charge. I can tell you what it means for you. So you currently hold about three consents for groundwater or surface water, as I understand, excluding geothermal. The three consents, they range between 25 and 6,800 cubic metres per day, net about 12,800 cubic metres. So under options 2 and 3, you're going to get lower charges for those moderate and large takes. Having said that, note that the small users, the dairy shed, wash down water, they will bear a little bit more of the cost. Not a huge amount, but more than they currently are. So there you go, something for you to consider in terms of which is the most equitable way to spread the cost.
Paula, may I ask a question?
Sure.
With the big users, big dairy farms, or are we talking industry there?
Talking mostly industry and irrigators.
Right. Sounds like a charge for water and dray.
It's a proposal to, I suppose it's to not have such a large step change between the small and the large users, when you consider that the size of your tank shouldn't make the biggest difference to your monitoring and enforcement, because we don't charge for the unit of water, if you follow.
Which councillor Weaver?
Some of your big users, like this irrigators in Rotorua, which were covered by this, are getting huge reductions. So, I mean, wouldn't they be using the resources of monitoring and resource consents that's more than the average residential household? Because it used to be slogged from $7.95 to $65, and yet a farm that's irrigated and can claim it as a business cost is going from $22,900 with the current charge down to $18,100, which is option 3, $19,500 option 2, and $21,600.
So this isn't households because it's consented water, but you're right, the small users of water, there's a cost subsidy going on, but we've had very strong points of view from the large water takes, and we have reflected that in the 3 options. You can choose to submit on where you feel the equity lies in that charging regime, because I'm sure that we're open to making up further changes.
So can you qualify what a 100 cube a day, what sort of operation would that be?
Well, obviously irrigators fall into that.
I'm not talking 100,000, I'm talking 100.
Oh, I'm not sure, to be quite honest, but there will be some small users. And the majority of people who take water are small users in actual fact. You know, they're just taking a bit to make food or wash their industry down.
That's my point, because the charges, they would be higher for the small users if there's a cross-subsidisation to the big user.
Fair point.
Councillor Weaver. Any councillor Ward?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So have you got the background information that tells you how much monitoring is required by the small users as opposed to the higher users? Have you got that? I'm not expecting you to have it.
Yeah, yes we do. We can provide some of it. A lot of it's got to do with the fact that the need for monitoring mostly occurs when there is little water and more people want it. So it's the summer. It's to do with the peak use of water. And then, of course, it is the big users that drive the need for us to monitor, because they're taking the most out of a depleted resource. When there is plenty of water, everyone can be quite relaxed. The monitoring and enforcement is not as necessary. So in the past, the previous regime did acknowledge that the big users are the ones we're really looking at. But to what extent? I mean, it was the one in the, it was that middle band. It was that person over 10,000 cubes who used maybe 10 cubes more, and went from paying 700 to paying 11,000. It was a little bit of a, so we were trying to smooth out that middle, but whether it's gone, as you may have alluded to, a little bit too far the other way, that's for submitters to consider and let us know. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon, then we'll come straight back to you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Paula, for your submission. When you talk about option 1, 2 and 3, you're talking about individual farm units, or are you talking about individual properties, or are you talking about that the farm or the neighbouring farm that be classed as 2 farms or 1 farm?
Depends on the number of consents that they operate. It's per consent, per consented activity. So I'll just wrap up by going straight on to where the, I won't talk about Tauhei unless you're particularly interested. I can't imagine why you would be, but it's important there though. This is where we land. This is a decrease, I wish I had brackets around it so it looked more like a decrease, but it's a decrease from existing ratepayers, partly because of the growth in the region, partly because the topo rate is now no longer collected. What else? And the TB rate is not collected by us. So those things make a difference and lead us to this. Having said that, you will know, and I know, that you'll be hard pressed to find a ratepayer on the average of negative 1.3 because of the difference in valuations that occur. They can be quite lumpy. And for example, Hamilton, no Hamilton Montonian will get a 1.3 because they've just been revalued this year, and some Hamilton properties have gone up to 40% because of what happened in the housing market last year. So they're looking much more like a positive 8% increase, which haven't given them the good news yet. But this is your average. This is how rating is equalled out across the years. I'm not sure when your next valuation year is next year. So, okay. So, are there any questions or feedbacks on any matter that? And thank you. Just while I'm here, for the relationship that we're entering into around geothermal. I think it's really excellent. And thank you for including us on the working party there. Tipa Mahuta will be representing my council, and we look forward to working through some of the opportunities for geothermal with you.
Thank you, Councillor Clinton and Councillor Stu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. My question relates to the sort of presentation of the document in terms of the water consent fees review and the recommendation of option 2. Nowhere do I see where it actually give us any idea of what the dollar amount is you're going to be collecting for this.
The overall quantum? No, it doesn't. But I can supply it to you.
I would have thought personally that if you're going out cap in hand to people to say we need charges, you should be justified, shouldn't you?
Yes, I think we probably could, but you're right, it's a detail we haven't put the overall budget cost there, but we could provide that.
Thank you, Councillor Stu.
Just thinking of our rural ratepayers who are in the South Waikato area, has any consultation been undertaken, particularly through federated farmers, and most of the farmers out there belong to, is the Waikato, Tamaritaho branch, have they been consulted with regard to the shape of this? And the other question was on your revenue. So your revenue is going to decrease, your total revenue is going to decrease by 1.3%.
Yes.
If, for example, your rate increase was plus 1.3%, do you then add growth on top of that? Say you had growth across your district of 2%, do you add growth as a quantum on top of whatever you were expecting as a rate increase?
No.
Okay.
What was your first question? Sorry, was there a whether have we consulted? We have to confess we had to fall on our sword when we made a change to the way it was rated last year. We didn't consult well enough. That's why we got a bit of a backlash from irrigators, all over, including Rotorua, who got a much bigger bill and weren't expecting it. So this time we've been more careful. This is their opportunity to consult. We are going out to federated farmers and all the relevant stakeholders. They've all had a written confirmation with the options, and I would expect local constituent councillors to do their share of the work in getting out and talking to people around West now.
Yes, Councillor Whitman.
Yeah, just a question. So the lake total protection at TV free rates, so was that always planned to have that come off as a targeted rate?
Total, yes, it's come off 2 years early because we've managed to buy the nitrogen out already. So it's no longer required for that purpose. That's good. We've got a little bit of skin in the game around monitoring and enforcement of total, but that's been general weighted. The targeted rate has come off. TB free was decided last year when we entered into conversations with the regional sector and the government, and it's going to be nationally levied in some fashion. So that was for a different set of reasons, quite complicated, but that's where we landed. Okay, thank you very much again for having me.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you. Go on to that item. Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you. So, item number 5, confirmation of our minutes. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Could it just be noted, I'm down as an apology, but I would like it noted that I was in Wellington on Civic Committee business about West Trinity. It should be noted in the minutes.
Yes, the reason as to your absence. Thank you. To make that change. Thank you. May I move on seconded, please, that the minutes of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 18th of February 2016 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Thank you, Councillor Gould. Thank you, Councillor Bentley. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you. recommendation 1, the 2016-2017 annual plan process. May I have a mover and a second, please, to receive the report, the 2016-17 annual plan process be received. Thank you, Councillor Hunt, and, sorry, who was there? Thank you, Councillor Shireen. If you move to the second, all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you very much. Thank you, Thomas, good afternoon. I know you're going to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. The presentation I'm about to go through is just summarise and touch on the things that we worked on at the workshops, just to refresh your memories with regards to what we talked about and what was agreed in principle, and working through the year with regards to the resolution. So, the purpose of this workshop will be to approve the development and the underlying principles of the annual plan, as well as improving the engagement to inform the community on what will be the basis of the annual plan. And an important note, when doing this, we're not actually setting the rates and we're not actually adopting the annual plan, that those two things will take place later this year in June.
So we're looking at the process that we're going to be undertaking.
And the engagement.
Engagement.
So, things we're going to recap on, again, just the legislative changes, key challenges, the basis of the plan, the things that we've modeled, the things that we've agreed upon in principle, touch on the innovation impact from the sample ratepayers, and then also just touch on the 10 years program as well, with regards to what we're looking at doing is year 2 of the LTP and what is the impact of that on the 10-year plan as well. And then touch on the engagement process. So, just a refresher, the Local Government Act changes in 2014 changed the way that we did the long-term plan with regards to how we engage and consult with our community, as well as change the way that we can engage with the community on the annual plan as well. So, probably just as you saw in the presentation before from the Waikato Regional Council, their consultation is exceptions-based, and the legislation really therefore is intended that if you don't have exceptions to your long-term plan, and if your annual plan follows the basis of the long-term plan, that there is no need to do special consultative procedure. And that's in effect the consultation, the hearings, and the deliberations process. Reasons why this was brought about. Stem from central government's concerns over the financial viability of our sector. Annual plans were at times seen as mini LTPs, so you went through the process of engaging and with that work and doing a long-term plan, setting your financial strategy and direction, and in the very next year, some councils were resetting that direction as part of the LTP process. So, Parliament was as well as leading to duplication, so you were again consulting on things that you consulted on previously in the LTP, and you were relitigating it. As well as that being time consuming, it was also driving cost into organisations as well, having the cost of having deliberations and hearings and those sorts of things. And I think the big problem for our sector was that it was causing us to deviate away from our 10-year plans, and particularly the financial strategies of that. And as such, we were seeing councils that weren't as financially stable as they should have been. And in a way, we were one of those councils. So we were setting LTPs, and in the following years, we were at times making quite significant deviations from the direction of those LTPs. So where are we at? So the theme of our 10-year plan, which, remind you, was only adopted 9 months ago, is to live within our means while still providing sufficient funding for key projects. And those key projects are obviously things like exiting the forest, the wastewater treatment plant, and looking after our key infrastructure. It's that fine balance again. So it's the balancing of debt, it's the balancing of rates increases, and it's the balancing of the levels of service. And just a reminder, so if you don't want to increase debt, or you want to reduce debt, then you have to look at the level of rates, or alternatively, you have to look at the level of the service with regards to the cost of providing those services. And as you adjust one, the other two generally adjust up and down as well appropriately. for us, the 5 challenges that were in the long-term plan are still there. So they haven't gone away from 9 months ago. They've remained the same. That we are still about making sure that our services are funded correctly. We've got some big challenges in the district with regards to wastewater and particularly the impact on water quality. The waste management strategy with regards to how we deal with our refuse collection is still there, as well as maintaining our community infrastructure in those 2016 priorities with regards to what we are delivering to our communities. I'm saying that, just like all strategies, it's important that we regularly review it. And as we talked about at the workshops, we've done that. So if you look at it and say this organisation and this community has finite resources, but in and around that there's pressures on us. So there's pressures on us with regards to the level of our debt. There's pressures around making sure that our rating is fair, but there's also pressure on making sure that our levels of service are maintained to the level that our community expects, as well as our infrastructure is being looked after. And then there's new challenges as well. So Rotorua Forest, the protection trust, and making sure our lakes and communities are there, as well as the increased visitor numbers that we've seen over the summer and the pressure that they can put on our infrastructure. And so therefore it's important that we consider all those things and our financial strategy, and therefore see as to whether we need to deviate or not. And as we discussed, these challenges aren't new. They were here 9 months ago. The LTP was designed to address those challenges. 9 months after the adoption of the LTP, we're not looking at changing any of our levels of service. We have no significant change in our capital expenditure, though we are aware that some projects, with their timing and where they sit, has changed. The efficiency savings that we have done are being met. If I was to compare it to a previous presentation from the Waikato Regional Council, we're not introducing a new rate as they are, so they are looking to obviously consult on that change, as well as they're not looking at changing any of their funding policy like they are with their water charging. So because of that, therefore, is that we can continue the approach that we're doing, and therefore there is no real justification for us to change our financial strategy that's set out in our LTP. As such, therefore, what have we done? So, year 2 of the LTP really is the basis of our aim. With regards to the financials, so what we have done is the interest expense reduction that we've talked about at previous meetings with the restructuring of our debt has flowed through into the financials. We've revised the inflation factor, so the inflation on the LTP was based on an economist's view at that time, and that is obviously being revised because the world has moved on since then. The capital program is predominantly as per the long-term plan. However, we have made adjustments for those things that we know have changed with regards to some projects this year that are moving into next year, and next year is one project that moves out into the future as well, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that later on. The LTP had us borrowing $2 million to fund the difference between what was cash surplus from operations to what we needed to fund our capital works program, and that hasn't changed. And we've also modelled the rating framework. So that was the decrease in the business differential and the increase in the rural differential. So overall, as we've taken year 2 of the LTP and we've refined it, there was no significant change that required us to consult, similar to what Waikato Regional Council has just shown you. And overall, our budgets are balanced, and the key one for us is that our capital expenditure isn't constrained as well, so we can do the things that we actually need to do, which is predominantly look after our infrastructure. Rating framework. So, you'll recall at the workshop we showed you what we modelled around the rating framework. So what we did was, by reducing the business differential down from 1.8 to 1.7, and by changing the rural residential differential from 0.9 to 0.95, by changing those multipliers and by allowing that multiplier to impact other rate-paid categories, so by allowing it to impact on residential and farming categories, what we found is that the rate increase that we modelled, we didn't have any ratepayers that actually sat near that average increase because of that allowing to spread. So there was agreement in principle that we would change the differentials, but we wouldn't allow that spread of revenue. And in doing so, we would forego $150,000 of revenue as a result. The other big one was around farming mission and working through whether that should be continued or not, or whether we should be turning it off, and we landed on the fact that the conditions of why that permission was given in the first place hasn't changed, and so therefore there was an argument therefore that it should continue into this next year as well. Moving on to the rate increase, and before I move on to the rate increase, it's very important to touch on CPI. So many people bandy many different things around, and the latest one I saw from the ANZ is that year-on-year inflation, headline inflation, is 0.9%. So therefore the rates increase should be along those lines, you would argue, and that's not what you hear from the community. However, there is a distinction between local government inflation and headline inflation. Headline inflation is what is being bandied around, and it's assortment of many different goods. So if I had my trolley basket as a normal consumer, and I was to fill that up with the types of goods and services that I require, and I'd take into account the price shift of fruit and veg, I'd take into account the price shift of petrol, I'd take into account all those different services that I require. And throughout New Zealand, you can imagine there's hundreds of different types of services. Local government is a bit different. For example, we're not impacted, our cost base isn't impacted by what happens in fruit and veg, it isn't impacted by what happens in clothing price increases and decreases. It's very specific to the services that we undertake and the goods and services that we buy, which is predominantly pipes, concrete, steel, those types of things. And I talked to you at the time, a couple of weeks ago, when I was at an insurance forum, and one of the big insurance companies was talking about the prices that they were seeing when they were paying out. So things like vanities and toilets and those types of things have shifted 10% in the last year. Skylights has shifted 20%. And these are similar to the types of things that we as an organisation acquire. To represent that, I've just taken a snapshot from the statistics website, and this is a page from how CPI is tracking for the December quarter, and just some of the categories that make up headline inflation. And if you come probably to the end here at the top, you'll see there's food groups, there's clothing groups, there's housing, there's all these different types of categories. Each one of these categories has different fluctuations, and then when you bring these all together, that's where you get the headline inflation coming about. And if you look at what's happening in the December quarter, you can see what's happened in fruit and veg, and you can also see what's happened to those prices over the last quarter. And each of these different categories also has subcategories, etc. And that's where the headline inflation comes from. But for us, we'd only pick 3 or 4 or 5 of those that are applicable to us, and that's how we therefore arrive at the inflation factor for this organisation. The other one is, if I come back, so the inflation factor that we do use comes from an organisation called Google, which is an economist organisation in Wellington, and how they arrive at the figure for local government is that they have a handful of councils throughout New Zealand whose costs they monitor, and a lot of that is based on the activity that they see in those organisations as well. And so for us, this is the change that we've seen. So the red line is what we had programmed into the long-term plan, and that was the view at the time. And the black line now is that revised figure for that same 10-year window. And so for us in the LTP, we had programmed in forecast 2.5, and that was the assumption at the time. And what we are being told at the moment is that, what we are being told is that that was sitting at 1.9% for us for next year. And you can see as well as that overall, for the next 10 years, that whole line has been pulled back down. So for us in the long-term plan, the undertaking obviously was that the rates increases in the future would be at the rate of inflation. And so for us, our cost base therefore is increasing at 1.9%, and we've modelled that. So therefore, if our cost base is increasing by 1.9%, our revenue should also increase correspondingly by 1.9%. And therefore, what we are proposing is an overall 1.9% lift in our rating revenue. Important though that underneath that, those changes in the differentials. So I mentioned before that we are, with those changes, going to forego $150,000 worth of general rate revenue. So therefore, to achieve an overall 1.9% lift in revenue, we're proposing to increase targeted rates by the 1.1%, but the general rate will have to go up by 2.3 to compensate for the $150,000 reduction in revenue. So what that means is that combined means that we would see a lift of 1.9% in our revenue, plus growth in our rate database. And what we've got here is, so this is what it looks like. So these are the same sample rate payers that we've used in our long-term plans in the past. And so what you can see there is that the business sector as a whole will see on average about a 0% rate increase. And that's the flow and effect of that business differential coming down, and that's that commitment that we made to that sector during the long term. Farming and residential overall sit at about 2.1ish, so very close to the 1.9, and the reason why it's slightly above is because both of those pick up a larger portion of the general rate, and with the general rate going up by 2.3 to compensate for that lost revenue, therefore they sit at around that. And the rural residential sits at about 5, 6s and 7s, which is a result of that rural residential differential going up. Now, it is important to remind you, therefore, that we did show you that example of a $500,000 property in London, a $500,000 property in Lake Okanaka. One has the differential, and the one in London doesn't. And even by lifting the differential, which actually results in that property getting a 5 or 6% rate increase, that property, like-for-like services, refuse, water, all that rubbish, still paid about $50 to $60 less in the same property over the whole. And that was the rationale for lifting the rural residential differential. Again, just remind you of those 3 levers, and the reason why I remind you again of the 3 levers is that I'm going to now talk about the capital works program, how that's been set, and the debt. And it's important that when you consider the rates increase, you also need to consider the flow-on effect to these 2 areas as well. So, within a pie, if I was to show you where our capital works program sits, you can see predominantly it's in things we call infrastructure, community facilities, and as such, but maybe the better way of showing you is this. So there has been accusation set with regards to where our capital works program is being targeted. So 73% of what we're proposing to do next year is actually replacing existing infrastructure. On top of that, we're actually looking at improving the levels of services in other areas. So if you take that 73% plus what's being proposed for roads, open spaces, which is our parks and our reserves, 95% of the $28.6 million we're proposing to spend is on existing infrastructure, or existing assets, or increasing our infrastructure capability. The other part of this, as Councillor, as you point out, core business. The other one I would argue is in a city, while we don't consider it core business, I challenge you to find any individual that doesn't go to our inner city or uses our inner city. A lot of our community is employed in the centre city, so whether or not you want to argue that we're vitalising our CBD and seeing the impact that we're having at the moment is not part of core business, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide your own personal views on that. So, we talk about where our capital forecast was for this year, and we know that we're going to not spend the full amount this year, but we also know that some of these projects will still go ahead and move out into future years. And so for this year being 2016, and remember the annual plan is 2017, which is that second bar. So for 2016, we are going to spend about $8.5 million less than planned. So some of that is actually not going to go ahead, and some of it is being transferred into future years. So of that, you can see there that T-Rex makes up half of it, which is being deferred into 2019 and 2020. The Performing Arts Centre isn't going ahead in one tranche because of external funding. The ERP is being delayed and so forth. And you can see that redistribution of that. So it's not a case of that we've forgotten about it and we don't need to worry about how we fund this. We are aware of where it sits, and therefore we have to understand what that impact is going forward. Some of it, as you can see, does impact us for next year. So there is a bit of a decrease with regards to some things coming out T-Rex, but there are some other projects that are coming in into 2017. talked about the inflation factor earlier on with regards to our LTP. So what this demonstrates is the blue line is our capital spend as per our long-term plan, and the red lines represent the new predicted or forecast spend based on the changes that we saw with some of those projects moving, as well as the new inflation factors. And the really big standout is obviously 2019 and 2020. So there's been quite a bit of push there, and that's related to the T-Rex. Whether the T-Rex goes ahead or not, we've put that money there because regardless of what we do, we need to look at what we're doing with regards to exiting the forest, which is why it's been considered. And overall, rather than projecting to spend 320 million, we're now only forecast to spend 314 million. And that therefore flows onto our debt. And so, I've talked in the past, and I'm not sure if everyone has seen this, but this is our debt profile. So the blue lines are our debt profile before, and obviously the purple and the green are where we are projected to go. And just to refresh your memories, between 2008 and 2013, this organisation's debt doubled in the space of 6 years. If we continue to do what we were doing, and that's that trend line that you see there, so it counts as also some line down over there, you can see that that was the path that we were taking, and that red line above is our borrowing capacity. So back in 2008, we had a lot of borrowing capacity. By 2013, there wasn't much left to go, and if we continued on the way that we were going, by 2015, we would have been right at our line. Now, the reason why 2015 is not sitting as high is because the annual plan actually had us borrowing, I think, 4 million for 2015, but instead we retired debt last year. So if we actually had stuck to the plan based on what our borrowing capacity was, we would have very little borrowing capacity left as an organisation. We were aware of that when we set the LTP, and the LTP helped resolve that, and as you can see, the purple and green lines, that borrowing capacity has been maintained. And once we get 2019 and 2020 underway, and most of our debt increase sits in the next 10 years, that's all tied to surge infrastructure, that borrowing capacity gets rebuilt going forward as we start to pay down debt. And so this is the new profile based on what we know, what we're considering for the annual plan, as well as the timing of projects, inflation and all those sorts of things. So I think overall it's that balancing of the three. So we're still in isolation. If you look at the plan, it's a rate increase of 1.9, capital expenditure of 28.6 million, and a debt increase of 2 million. And I'd say that it's fairly balanced for this year, but it's important as well as to look at it over the next 9 years as well and longer. And overall, we believe that we maintain the balance that we set for the LTP. So, just on that, moving into community engagement, difference between what some other councils are doing with regards to engaging on amendments or changes to the LTP. We have no amendments or material changes to the LTP. So what we're looking at doing is engaging with our community on our process, why there is that difference in process, because it's important that our community realises why there is that change. That we are sticking with Tier 2. Highlighting what the rates increase will be, that we are looking to retain the farming mission, as well as continuing on with the differential changes and what our priorities are for 2016-2017. Like the council on the right to say, well, how do communities therefore come to council and say, I have these needs, how do we do this thing? Which is what happens sometimes during the annual planning and LTP process. And so what we're saying is that for minor changes, our community needs to engage with this organisation. We're in portfolio groups or community boards, or engaging with the management of this organisation. And if it's a minor change that can be accommodated, it really is a reprioritisation of our current spend. Sometimes those decisions can be made at an operational level, sometimes they have to be elevated to council if the council make that decision. Where the changes that our community are after are substantial, but it still needs to go through exactly the same process to bring those issues up for us to be aware of. But then it really is a decision for council as to whether it feels that actually this is important, we cannot wait to the next long-term plan before we choose to have an end to our solve, or as I say, to wait. And that really is the process. So, Rotorua Village wants more curb and channel garden, and that's the process that we should work through. If from an operational perspective we can accommodate it, we should. If we can't, that should be elevated as the council decision as to whether to reprioritise or to amend or to wait. Yes, any questions?
Thank you very much, Thomas. I do know that you have had two workshops already, but I really appreciate it. I know it's very many other councils, but I have really appreciated hearing again the issues that have been highlighted, clarified by things. And I know we've got questions, obviously, hands up, we need to raise questions. So thank you very much for that presentation. So, councillors, please, it's open now for discussion. Councillor Kew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first concern is with the statement that I made materials that there were significant changes to the long-term plan. Because I'm seeing very considerable changes to the long-term plan. The most notable of which is the Lively Health Fund. The Lively Health Fund in the long-term plan is quoted at $4.3 million, including renewals. We are talking of spending $8.8 million. The difference is well in excess of $3 million, therefore it is required to go out to public consultation in terms of our significance policy. It is also required to go out to consultation in terms of section 95A5 of the Local Government Act and the requirements statements that we can hear about this morning. So to turn around and actually say we've got no significant changes to the long-term plan is quite honestly rubbish. And I think we need to review what we're doing and actually start obeying the law.
So just on that, Madam Chair, we are well within the law, so the trigger for whether to determine whether it is significant or not is this organisation's significance in engagement policy. And while you have highlighted one figure out of that, it's actually not the figure that's applicable, because it's actually the $10 million account, because this is actually budgeting expenditure. And so this, the Children's Health Fund, the Library Act does.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, that's rubbish.
Please don't respond like that, and there's no need for that. Thank you. And we've got any further explanation? Yes, yes. Thank you.
So with regards to our policy of what determines significance and materiality, this doesn't actually trigger it. However, if council does feel that this is significant and wants to consult on it, then council can choose to do that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Thomas, for your report. A couple of weeks ago, you advised us that there's 5.7 billion better off, and the debt of this council is 167 billion. And you said that 30th June, the debt will be 168 million. And one might have saying from the figures today that the debt will be 170 million, that 2 million you're talking about. Are we talking about something wrong with that 5.7 million project which should be deferred? I've also got a second question too.
So council, the $2 million there reflects a projected borrowing increase for next year. The $5.7 million reduction relates to this year. So therefore, if we hold our debt with what it currently is and end the year at 167.5 million, the $2 million would be on top of that. Yes.
My second question is that on your slide presentation, 2017 Capital Works Program, you've got a lot of things lumped together, like roading, water, sewage and refuge. Could you possibly separate those at some stage? Because the government has announced to this council a month ago that we're going to get $24 million for the Tenai Road upgrade. And is part of that going to assist that in saving money in the long term, or part of that's going to other roading projects?
I can't answer the second portion, councillor, but with regards to that detail, what we are considering putting up on our website does show the split between those, giving that detail. will be available.
Thank you.
Can I reply to that? With the 10 road upgrade of 24 million, as a business person, I would expect that if a business had to spend a little bit more, we could get more from that to the road project, which would be an advantage to us in the future.
I think, Madam Chair, if I can, it's important to note that the announcement that was made is not that the government is going to give us $24 million as a roading route. The government through the NZTA is going to invest $24 million into Yara Road, which is their road, because it's a highway. Right, so the spending, you're right, is going into Rotorua, but the money is not coming to the district council. It's an NZTA project, and funding for the NZTA project sits for the NZTA.
Thank you for that. Chief, that question that came from Councillor Kent about the significance, issues with Mr. Consultant, have you got anything there? So I think that's right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Kent did express a very strong view as to the advice that was actually just provided by Thomas. So I felt it was actually important that we just go ahead and nail that down. And so what I wanted to draw your attention to is page 23 of the agenda, which is attachment 4, which is actually the significance of engagement policy. You'll notice that under 3.2A to H are the criteria for significance. And it is important that when you're reading this, is that you do not take one item out of the others. You're looking at evaluating significance of a particular decision against those items A to H and total. Thomas was pointing out the fact though that 3.2C, bullet point, the 2 bullet points there, are very clear with respect to the funding decisions of significance. So there is $10 million as the trigger, if you like, for budgeted expenditure. That's the level of change. Or if it's unbudgeted, $3 million. So that's what Thomas was drawing your attention to. As he also says, is that you need to make the determination at the end of the day as to the significance of a decision against those criteria which are outlined in 3.2. But the advice given to you by staff is quite clearly that the staff assessment and looking at 3.2 is that the change in the health fund, the Children's Library Fund, does not trigger the significance policy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move on, please. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Councillor Wigger, I've got quite a number of these. I'd like you to just agree with me. Councillor Wigger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I'm struggling to get my mind around the new process, particularly we have to go through with the second plan. And I was going to bring to your attention the capital expenditure focus, which I think you've covered off most of it, yes. But it would certainly be handy, Thomas, if you produced a summary of which items, like the information centres being deferred from this year to next year. And I was going to highlight the fact that I can see that the capital expenditure next year, combined with what we've already located here, we will perhaps be higher than what we're budgeting. Perhaps, as I say, a summary of those would help us understand the big picture. I have to concur with Councillor Kent on the statement regarding the library. Jeff, you just made reference to page 23. You referred to 3.2C. Look at D&E. We may perhaps come to regarding where we're going in the future with that one. But I just think more information regarding the CapEx would help us understand the picture, because we have a new CCO. Has that been included in this? Tourism Rotorua, we're talking $500,000 or thereabouts, maybe another one. So there's factors like that that I'm just worried that we have not included at this point in time. Regarding the process,
it's certainly somewhat different to what we are used to in the past. And when I looked at the bottom of page 15 and top of page 16, I see that we intend to respond to written submissions with some written facts and figures in a verbal discussion or face-to-face engagement. I'm not particularly comfortable with face-to-face engagement because it leaves us open to a lot of accusations. I note that our regional councils, both of them, will be sent a written explanation of the outcome of the submission. I just believe that we should go down the track of written responses to all written submissions. But the rules for that is going to change. So I'm not comfortable with that part of the process. Thank you.
I'll just respond to that one. Councillor, if that's what you want, we can do that. The suggestion in the paper was a way of, because you don't have to do formal hearings and formal consultation, another way of doing it is for those people that do provide feedback, that they still get a response back, but it's more of a cumulative response about all the decisions that are made, and you don't actually have to physically send that back direct to the submitter. But if you're more comfortable that any written feedback that we get in, that we respond directly to them, we can do so.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I don't believe we're going to get many written submissions in because of the exception basis. Therefore, I believe it's only appropriate that we do go through the formal process of writing back to written submissions. I think that's essential.
Your worship?
Around the question of the library and children's hub, I understood we made that decision as long as it was in the 10-year fund and envelope. So I'm very happy about that. I don't see that as significant. I do think, I agree with you, Councillor Mick, because the community doesn't understand that what they're used to is now condensed down to this, and for what reasons. And I don't want the public to think that we're hiding anything. And so therefore, it's not, in my mind, good enough to use the old process, which is just call for submissions and respond to them, because that's what we did with the old annual plan. I think we do need a community engagement plan. That's an educative component about why the change, why we're going out to explain the change in the rating base. And I think that's a very important component of the whole change, because it isn't understood in the community. So I do think that we should really do that. And the other aspect I'd like on the community engagement is other issues, because I remember during previous submissions, people sometimes came up with something that wasn't even on the plan, and they were good. They were like the footpaths to running our school. You know, the school kids can be good things, and they should be things that we can then put into our work program anyway and absorb them anyway. So I think we need that sort of other issues, because right around our district, everybody's got a different basket of issues. So I wouldn't like to do the old annual planning approach. I think it's great to see a community engagement approach undertaken by us as a council. We've got nothing to hide. It's year 2 of what it shows the rigor of our first year of our 10-year plan, LTP approach. And it has to be educative. And this was a classic example. These are the other 3 issues that go on. So,
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I know that Lynn is going to go on give a little bit further explanation on the communications strategy. Thank you. Councillor Sharon.
I agree with Councillor Kent and particularly that sometimes what Lee has said as well. Talking of the library hub and that there's money there, and has always been in the 10-year plan. It is only there because there are other projects that are not being done. And in particular, there is the arts to 1.3 million, legislative changes, and we're talking about items there of no deviations. But isn't it possible, in fact almost inevitable in some places, that after an election such as this year, there could be, and I guess the question is to Dr. Thomas, there could be complete change in philosophy, complete change in spending priority. So how does that accommodate? It has to be, doesn't it?
So did that accommodate the following year, what the council was choosing to do with their annual pay? If I just come back to the other comment regarding the Performing Arts Centre coming out and funding the increase in the housing, I think if, can you bring up the presentation again? Maybe I didn't explain this slide too well, so I might just come back to it, because I think it answers Councillor Milford's questions as well. They're all on the screen. That's this slide here. So the bar on the left, the reason is this middle point is 0. So if it's below the $0, that's what's coming out this year. And underneath, we're heading 2016, 17, 18, and 19, 20. Those are the projects that are come out in the year that they fall about. So this year, with the 8 million, T-Rex is one, Performing Arts Centre is one, the earthquake strengthening is another, the ERP is another one that's been delayed, and then you can see in the future years as to where they slot. But I think it's important that some of the reason why we're not spending the total amount this year, and it creates capacity in future years, is because some projects actually do come out under cost. Some projects just are minor and just don't happen as a result either. And so it's a combination of all those things that wash together to achieve the fact that you can accommodate the increase to the library and still do the bulk of the project. But the Performing Arts Centre one has been taken out because it was tied to external funding. So what we've said is that without that external funding, it won't come back in. So we can bring it back in if there's external funding because you've got the 1.3 million corresponding revenue to pay for it. That's the reason why it's out.
It hasn't come back in that 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. The 1.2 doesn't figure again. So where has it gone?
Because that project has stopped because there is no external funding. Because that part of that project
But
was
the external funding
100%.
was to go on top of that.
No, that external funding was funding that expenditure directly.
But the 1.3 million was all external funding.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Texel, then Councillor Stewart.
After reading this report, I really questioned whether the focus of this change was actually on reducing costs or creating more adequate consultation and engagement. And because as Mayor Chadwick was saying, the focus of this council has actually been, or we've been endeavouring to make consultation a reality with our community. So I'm concerned that the changes after reading through this and the changes that will tackle with the documentation and consultation requirements is will our residents still have an opportunity to have a say in decisions that affect them? So my question is really, can you assure that residents will still have a say in decisions that affect them? If there will be a change, or will they have to wait for that long-term plan? And secondly, I guess what has been more important in this, was it in reducing the cost, or was it in ensuring that the consultation is adequate on both sides, for the community and also us as a council?
Thank you. I know that Chair wants to respond, but can I just say that there have been whole sectors of our community that have never engaged, and because they do not write submissions. Many of them are quite fearful of coming and appearing in front of a whole group of people, so the potential, I think, when we get to outline the communication strategy, I think you will find that the potential is there for our community probably to be far more fully engaged than they ever were in the past. But we'll leave that from you in a minute, you're on there. Chief, please.
If I can, councillors, I can understand how this looks to be quite a large step away from traditional practice, and indeed it is. In the past, many councils took every year every year was a new year. It was all recreated. Now, the reason government has actually asked us to move away from that is that in recreating the world every year, we ignore the long-term sustainability of the organisation. So that's the reason to move back to a 10-year view. But the other thing that this council has done, and you have done in particular, is that we've moved into a much more of a dynamic work program, where you and leading portfolios are engaging with our community on a regular basis. Now, in the past, you couldn't have done that on a way where you could have said we could do anything different, because what you would have had to have said is that, well, next year when we do our annual plan, you put in a submission and we will hear your submission, and if we think that your project is going to make the grade, we'll put it in for next year. Or in many instances, and some of our actually, I've heard this directly from our own staff, they've been telling me that what we used to say when someone asked us to do something is, no, we're not going to do anything, and if you want us to do that, you're going to have to come to the next annual plan round. So that's how things work. How things are today is that, as you know, you've actually been leading this. We are continually prioritising and reprioritising our work, looking at how we can actually say yes to people when they ask us, at the time they ask us to do something different. That's what we're trying to do. Just the same way as our capital works program. The old approach is to list your 15, 20 projects and do exactly what those 20 projects said. No more, no less. And at the end of the year, that's exactly where you get to. What we're doing today is that we recognise that projects will change over the life of the project. Some will decrease in cost, some will decrease in cost, others won't go ahead at all. And so over the time of the project, things will change. As things change, we're using a dynamic budgeting model. You find whether you can do more or do less. And that's exactly how we're managing our capital works program. So as we look at things coming in and challenges and projects, we can change according to a dynamic work program. Now, the graphic example of this is looking at Councillor Hunt, is the inner city portfolio, where there has been a lot of dynamic change in the sort of things that have happened over the 12-month period. Those have been totally driven by and in response to our community. So our whole engagement strategy is to try and say, how do we empower our communities through our portfolio approach? And in the future, I think with the discussions that you've been having with regards to representation, how do we empower community boards to make more decisions and to be able to look at issues that are relevant for them of the day and for us to respond to those requests in a timely manner. Now, therefore, in terms of a council, we have to work in quite a different way. It's a demanding way. So what we are looking for within the central plan, of course, is to set funding in place, to understand what is our long-term sustainability, and also at the same time look at major issues that you believe we should go back out, that we might have got wrong in the LTP, and that we should go out and reconsult on to get communities input onto those major decisions. But in order to empower communities, in order to actually ensure we get community voice, we need a multiplicity of mechanisms, not just a single annual plan round. And that's exactly what we're trying to do within this process.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to budgeted $2 million debt increase, may not happen. So there are opportunities there to change midstream, and that's why we go through this period, so Council members, the 3 monthly updates on where we're here, where things can change, where improvements can be made, etc. And I think we've got to look at it that way. So my big question, Madam Chair, to start with, are we looking for the vehicle platform for having new ideas going forward? Because what's highlighted to me in this process is not replacing it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I don't want to sit here for 5 days and doing what they do. I think the LTP now has to be highlighted. That is the vehicle. That is just now so important that sets the parameters for budget over the next years. And Madam Chair, that has to be in the first year of the training, not the second year. Because what we're doing through that LTP is this council only really 2 years of the budget going through. So I believe that needs to be in the first year of the training, and the team plans up the budget for 3 years. Just some other things that I need to question, so I need an answer on that, please. Deviations from what we planned last year, those deviations are all just been approved by the New Zealand government. If we have minor alterations or major alterations, or New Zealand come in and say whether that's a significant departure or not, and they will tell us that we need to get this that together. Explains a little bit together. The other question is, Jeff, where do we plan when we do this after the next election? Where do we plan to run through here? Because what we've got is things are moving around quite substantially with the massive growth we're experiencing in this county. 69 new houses, so levels consistently. So there is the pressure coming on the infrastructure. I mean, I know we have got capacity here this year, but we need to be looking forward on that.
Any further points, Councillor
I'm
Stewart?
sorry to go on, but I think that's it. But I do want to draw a little diagram here, and I need this explained. Just presume that the revenue from the Rotorua District Council is $20 million. Of that $20 million, 50% is paid by residents, so that's $10 million. $5 million is paid by farming, and $5 million is paid by industrial and commercial. In the residential, there are 10,000 acres. In farming, there's 5,000, just use my income, 5,000 in farming, 5,000 in industrial and commercial. If the residential grows by 2,000, that means there's 12,000 people just to share the burden of the $10 million, which is the 50% revenue from that sector. That would mean that there are 12,000 ratepayers today who get a rate increase in that differential because there are more people sharing the burden. And that's why I asked the question of the lady from Waikato,
Yes.
South Waikato.
Exactly.
And in the past, I've been, councillors Frank and I have argued this till we're blue in the face. They rate a rate increase of 3% plus growth. And then everyone gets a 4.9, a 7.5, 8.3 rate increases. Growth should be to the benefit of the ratepayers who are paying for and provide the infrastructure at that time. If more infrastructure is going to be built, or 12,000. Where before the people, the 10,000 who built it the day before, they should benefit because it's another 2,000 ratepayers. So that's a philosophical thing, and I just raised it. So there's 3 issues. 1, when will the rates be growing? 2, the $28.6 million capital program. When can we get a list of what that provides? Because I think that's important. And the other point is the growth issue.
Councillor, I was going to yes, no, but you changed your question to the end. First of all, how you describe those the rating pie, if we have box differentials, that would work as you suggested, but we don't have box differentials. share that back to the existing ratepayers. I think the chairperson who was on my chair said that yesterday evening. I'd be highly surprised if that actually was the case, because most councils don't do that. Part of our financial strategy is that the growth in the ratepayer database helps us build this operating surplus, which helps pay for our capital works program, which overall reduces our debt. So therefore, if you were to change the way that you suggested that we pass back that growth, it reduces our overall increase in our rates take, which means we wouldn't have sufficient cash to pay for our capital works, which means we could end up borrowing. So it is part of our financial strategy to do what we're doing.
So the growth that we experience is things that might
Correct, it's there to help build our operating surplus, which is used to pay for capital works and retirement debt. Yes.
Thank you. That's next year. That's next year.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Well, there's three councillors who would like to speak, Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Heat, and then we would like to come on to the communications village. So we've had a lot of concerns raised around the area. Councillor Donaldson, and thank you for your patience, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is around the shifting of rates burden through the moving of the differentials. Look, I'm comfortable with the process that we're proposing, but I go back to the presentation, Thomas, and your bubble chart. One of the factors was fair rating. Right at the start, so pressure on finite resources, fair rating, removing the rural residential differential, and we can see how that shifts the burden. Now, I'm also comfortable with that, unless we get a decision that of the Local Government Commission, which we heard yesterday, from submitters including the Lakes Community Board. So the Lakes Community Board pays a target rate to support the existence of the Community Board. That's contrary to a recommendation of the direction of the Local Government Commission, but this council has always decided to keep that targeted rate. The proposal is in there that we establish a rural community board, which I understand, if it's supported by the Commission, will be funded by a general rate as opposed to a targeted rate. So that gets me back to the point of fairness. If that is what is presented to Council by the Local Government Commission on the 10th of April or before, to make an earlier decision, and we want to implement fairness and put them on an equal footing to fund those community boards, would that be a significant change from the LTP and something we'd have to go out for consultation on? How would we handle that? That's my question.
Good question, Councillor. Yes, that would trigger an amendment to the LTP, because you would be introducing a new rate to a certain category of ratepayers. We probably wouldn't have the time in late April to do that consultation in time for the rate setting in late June. So we would probably therefore have to absorb that cost or fund it from the general rate next year, with review when we do a funding review of all our rates. That's looked at and considered then, and it may therefore be an option for the council at the time to completely scrap that targeted rate that we currently have, because we've got wider community groups, and just fund that overall with the general rate business.
Councillor Hunt.
Just a few comments really. One on the written submission and the written response we normally give, and no criticism to those that write them, but for many people receiving them after submissions, they're pretty generic and very often meaningless, because they were submitting on a whole raft of things, and there's no way we get 1,400 submissions. So that's an RSI writing outside law that they can be personalised. The face-to-face is going to be far better for most people to submit, because they'll get an opportunity if they need to actually pull apart what happened. I'm expecting we're going to get far more uptake with 3 issues. If I was in that group, I might even be prepared to put it on submission. So they're only asking 3 things. I might only be interested in the life-saving one, but I'm not having to wade through document after page after page after page of stuff that whatever I say, no one's going to change anything anyway,
because it doesn't get changed to a long-term plan, and that's what our community faced. So it's clarifying it. The issues, the community will know what the issues are, and therefore the responses that they need will be tailored specifically to them. It's much more personalised, and it's a completely different way of how we relate. I'm hoping that that state part that Councillor Sturt mentioned, there's no reason that couldn't be a joint thing portfolio through sport and rec and in a city. And I think that would be a great opportunity for those to talk about that specific issue. Can it be done under existing budgets? Maybe, maybe not. It could be tagged as if something else doesn't go ahead, and this could be the next one off the rank. And it could even be seen as part of that whole, while it's not in Kura Park, it certainly is in that neighbourhood of development there. So I'm expecting that we get far more consultation. We had a criticism of over-consulting our community. They got lost in that and they turned around, and then people say, well, I didn't consult, I didn't put a submission this year because I put one in last year. Why are you asking me again and again? So we'll narrow down what we're asking. We'll get specific responses. If it is significant and goes outside of the premises, we've been very clear to make our 85% funding envelope, all of those things. If it changes, we'll certainly let people know, and we have a variety of ways to do that. But let's not overwhelm them on a whole pages and pages of meaningless information that isn't important to most of them. You've got the LTP for those that really want that fine detail. They don't get it every year. We don't need to go through the motions of listening to them. No, do not make late changes. So I fully support where we're heading with this, and I think it's a great step forward for the whole country.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hunt. Actually, the example that Councillor Stewart gave with the state was actually a good opportunity for portfolios to work together, and there is the opportunity for actually when we are responding to submissions, if that's the way to go, is actually responding under portfolios, because most of those issues would fall under portfolios. So that's one way of addressing it anyway. Councillor Kent, and then we'll get on to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to the Chief Executive, who gave an explanation earlier that he and his staff, his senior management staff, have decided that live health fund is not a significant issue, which the law says if it is a significant issue, we have to take out the consultation. Not just by money, we have to do it. My question to the Chief Executive is, how does he and his senior management staff reach that decision when on page 23 it states where there is a significance of the proposal or decision is unclear against any of the criteria, the Council must treat that criteria as being more significant rather than less. First point. Secondly, under item B, it says the impact or consequences of the proposal or decision on the affected persons, being a number of persons, will be substantial. Well, I would have thought 1,000 people signing a petition was a substantial number of persons. Therefore, point 2. Under point C, it states the financial implications of the proposal or decision are substantial. It involves 3 million or more unbudgeted capital expenditure. Well, Mr. Colley's slides up there show 1.4 million, 1.4 million, and 0.4 million. That, by my mathematics, adds to 3.2 million, which is excess of 3 million. Therefore, it must go into consultation. Item D states the proposal or decision will be difficult to reverse once the Council is committed to it. What are we going to do? Take it down again after you've already built it? Of course it's going to be difficult to reverse. Therefore, it must go into consultation. It says under E, the proposal or decision is likely to generate a high degree of controversy in the community. I think we've already got that, don't you? And finally, under H, if it significantly changes the intended level of service for any significant activity, well, turn over to page 27 and you will see that the district library is classified as a significant activity. So would the Chief Executive please explain to me how he and his staff can possibly come up with a decision which is directly contrary to this policy of significance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor, I completely agree with your analysis, and if you recall, when this project was first tabled as a proposal that was included in the LTP. At that particular time, the view and the advice to you from staff was that it was a significant project and that it did need to go out for consultation under an SCP, and that's why it was included in the LTP. And so your analysis of looking at the significance policy, what you're doing is actually simply restating, in fact, the advice that was actually provided to you and why it was included. There is a different matter though that I think you're referring to, and it was the matter with respect to the extension of the budget for an approved project. So what you are not doing there is actually reapproving the project. What you're looking at and the decision that was before you previously, which you've already taken, was to extend the budget of the project. Now, if you then reapply the criteria, not as to be reapproving the entire project, but the extension of the budget of the project, then you actually get a different view as to whether or not it reaches the level of significance or not. So the advice provided to you by staff at the time that the project was put before you for approval to extend the budget was that it was not an item that was actually extend the significance policy. So you've already actually had the debate on that, you've already considered this project, and you've made a resolution to extend the budget and to continue with the project. So that is actually a resolution of council. And so,
Excuse me, Madam Chair, we have not. I raised this issue at the last meeting and it has still not been answered. The decision that this council made was that we would consider extending the budget once we were given the figures as to what was going to come out of the budget, what we were going to lose as a result. We've never seen those figures. Look back to the minutes. That decision was not an approval decision.
through you, Madam Chair. Councillor, I think that we are quite happy going back to the wording of the decision. One of the things that we undertook was to actually report back to you about the affordability of that budget extension. And that has actually been done. That material is actually again before you today, which is actually painting the picture. And the key question here was, is this project able to be continued within the envelope of the LTP? Now, that's what this material is actually providing you with today.
Well, you show me on there where it tells me which things have fallen off the long-term plan. If it doesn't,
I'm quite happy to show them.
sorry, T-Rex is another issue apart from that, because you're also including T-Rex not only as coming off the figures there, but you're also including it back on the figures on a later item in here. So please, let's get this straight.
So Councillor, if you look at the very bottom of the slide, you can see what is going in and what is going out. So the items with red numbers are those projects that are coming out in the year that they're coming out, and the items with black figures are the ones where they're coming back in. So as you highlight, T-Rex does come out, but T-Rex also comes back in 2019 and 2020. And when I take those changes, as highlighted there, and put it back together with regards to our 10-year program, the blue line was the line that was in the annual plan, in the long-term plan, and the red line reflects the new profile of the long-term plan, taking into account the increased costs to the library, some projects coming in, some coming out, and moving around. As you can see at the bottom, LTP totaled 320 million, and now it totals 314 million. And as we talked at the forums, that the LTP had this reducing our debt by 18.5 million, and we're still forecasting to do exactly that as per the long-term plan.
You still have not told me which items are going to come out, because if you put T-Rex out and then you put T-Rex back in, nil effect. So where the hell has the extra come from? What are you dropping off? Because you're not disclosing it to us.
Madam Chair, I think it's entirely inappropriate to make a comment that we're not disclosing. It's very obvious to lots of us in the room. But if the member wants clarification disclosing is absolutely inappropriate. Yes,
Summary, we wanted to move right through, totals at the bottom, and once we receive that, then we will make a decision as to whether we will proceed, which was what the minutes actually stated.
Thank you. The decision to proceed with the hub has been made. It has been made.
Absolutely.
There are other considerations that we have to take into account when they come to hand. That decision has been made.
Not in the minutes, has not.
Could I just make the point too, that we had the auditors as auditing risk, and we asked the question, I asked the question as the chair, were we acting financially prudently in our within the parameters of the Local Government Act and our long-term plan? And we were informed we are, and there's been no change to those plans. Or change.
Council Reid, and then I'm going to move on to
We've been given the true cost of the children's home, the initial time that it was discussed and voted on. Do we still think the same answer would have come up if we were aware of how much it actually cost? We were sold the project on a much reduced budget, and that is why some people made it in a way and society would expect that. Had we known the true cost, the different decision would have been.
Just lead into that. As you're aware, obviously before Christmas we gave that report which detailed why from the initial estimates through to the estimates based on the concept plans, the cost of the project for the council had been increased to 8.8 million. At that time we asked you to consider increasing that budget. Part of that resolution was also to ask that through that commitment we would have authorisation to spend up to $800,000 within this financial year. Because as you recall, we detailed that we needed to start looking at the movement of Van Dykes and also the movement of the library to a temporary location, but also that we were embarking on the detailed design phase with the DHB, so that was the $800,000 was to undertake that work. So councillors, that's when, after that decision that had been to committee and then to council, you had given us that authorisation. It then moved to an operational project, so it came away from me. It was taken over by our Chief Operating Officer to lead. Now, Dave and I gave a fairly detailed update to the last operations and monitoring committee. We went back through that history and restated and re-showed you the resolution that we undertaken, and also confirmed that we had secured the Van Dykes building as a temporary relocation site. So we have taken that decision and we have been
operating on that basis and moving this project forward.
Thank you. Well, thank you, councillors. Yeah, I think maybe you're going to request applications on that's been done.
Yes, councillors, I don't have too much more to say than what is outlined in the report. I just really want to pick up and clarify a couple of things that have come out today, and just to make sure that your expectations are met when we do start to roll out with the engagement. The first thing is that the Waikato Regional Council tabled and had a lovely flash consultation document. We will not be doing a consultation document. We are not consulting. We have information to share and to talk to our community with, and we have lots of mechanisms in which to do that. One will be, as a kick-off start, we have a two-page spread that goes in the Daily Post each month. You will see information all themed around the annual plan and those sort of topics that we talked about around the rates and the differentials, the farming remission included in that. That will also form hard copy information, leaflets, brochures, which can be passed out to communities and to community groups. Then there's also those face-to-face through your portfolio groups and all our other forums and groups that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. What I can do, and if it makes it a little bit clearer for you, is also circulate out sort of a schedule of activity of what we sort of plan to see and happen of being out and about during the next month. And it really is remembering, just to let you all know, this is about letting the community know and informing everybody about the process that we're undertaking, why we're doing it, and that we're on track with year 2. We're sticking to our long-term plan. At the same time, we also acknowledge that members of the community do have other issues that they will want to raise, and we encourage that they do so, and they can do so by any means that they want. It doesn't have to be a written submission. It won't be a dedicated submission form like we've seen in the past. We will accept letters, we will accept email, we will accept Facebook posts, we will accept people ringing us up and having a conversation, and we will record all of that. We will be able to bring that information back to you in themes and topics. And just as Thomas's couple of slides where he was talking about what are those issues in that and how we consider them, some of the issues and topics that come forward might mean that you want to consider doing something different for this annual plan. Others are and can be passed back through our operational and business units to include in our dynamic budgets. And other ones may be big and new issues that we have to say, look, we might just need to park this until the next long-term plan. And just sort of lastly, I think if we cast our minds back to the Your Choice engagement, it's the similar kind of approach to that, being out and about and sharing the information. I do have here today an information pack. This is for your information. It gives you another copy of the report and goes into detail some frequently asked questions. So questions that the community may and are likely to ask you. There's some answers there in that. They'll also be on the website and they'll be pushed out through all our other channels.
Thank you very much, Una. I'm now going to ask for a mover and a second. We've had a lot of discussion. I think it's been very good discussion. When you're changing a process entirely, then obviously we needed to have that discussion. So thank you. And that comes hard on the last 2 workshops that we've had as well. So I'd like to call for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. And the motion is that the committee recommends to council A, to follow the exceptions-based approach to the annual plan as per legislation. B, that in assessing the council's significance and engagement policy, there are no material or significant changes to year 2 of the current long-term plan that require consultation. C, that the council will undertake engagement to inform the community of the changes to the development of this annual plan and of the topics chosen to inform the community on the drivers to the annual plan 2006-2017. The The topics for engagement will be bullet point 1, proposed rates increases for the year 2, 2016-2017, which is being proposed around movements in the ratings differentials. Second bullet point, retaining the farming remissions at a cost of $320,000. And bullet point 3, our capital priorities for 2017. It's been moved by Your Worship, the Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Gould. Yes, please. Yes. I believe that that's to be done by both, actually. Certainly, I'd like to think that we'll be out there too. So, yes. Thank you.
Would it not be wise, so that we don't get inquiries based on the overhead that was put forward? We're going to list our capital priorities for 2017, but surely we should detail what we've got in place for these. There will be questions about when's that going to be done.
I think that we can share as much information as we can. Thank you. So thank you. It's been moved to the second. I'd like to now put that motion, please. All those in favour, and you've seen it up there, and I've also just obviously given it, spoken about the motion. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. Thank you. Thank you. There's been a call for a division, so we have that, please. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. All those in favour, please raise your right hand on the motion that was just put. Sorry, I'll just please, all those in favour, please keep your right hand there. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you. Yes, oh, sorry, beg your pardon, yes. Those against the motion, please. Oh, and Charles, yes. Oh, sorry, thank you. I'll give Jeff to read that. Just so that we're all clear. Thank you. You're an extension. Thank you,
Through you, Madam Chair. So, voting for the motion were Mayor Chadwick, Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Gould, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Rotorua Lakes, Councillor Texel, and Councillor Webber. Voting against Councillor Pinkley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Webber, and Councillor Surrey.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Now, recommendations.
I just wondered, look, you know, when we go to public consultation, all those councillors who are in favour, are we at least speaking with them? I have a problem with them going back to consultation myself. They don't support it. No, you don't.
Because we have specific reasons for it.
Now, obviously, I would think that those people who do support it will be the ones that are going out to the consultation, but everybody can go. Everybody.
I'm just questioning it, Madam Chair.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Recommendation 2, the election and communication protocols for elected members. May I have a mover and a seconder, please, that we receive this report? Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. That the report, elections and communications protocols for elected members be received with that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Thank you, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Una. Una's going to receive this report. Thank you. Sorry, councillors.
I wasn't actually going to speak to this one. I'll just take questions. I believe it is all there in the report, so if there's any questions, I'll just take
Yes, thank you. It's very comprehensive. I realise there's so much onus on us to do the right thing. More so than others out there. So, no, we won't be cynical, but please, councillors, I'd like to open it up for, and I think it's very helpful. It makes it clear what our responsibilities are as current elected members, but also for staff too. And I know in central government this can often be quite a tricky issue. So, councillors, please, Councillor Bibb and then Councillor Schramm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification, if I may. Page 29. Can I ask the question, does the election protocols apply just to the period 8th of July to the 8th of October, or does it apply henceforth with particular reference to the 3 points under the election protocols?
It should really be taken and based upon from now onwards, given that we are in an election year, but it is mainly specific to those three election months.
Thank you. So you would confirm that it does apply from henceforth?
It can't be enforced at this point in time, so this is a heads up and a way we should be working. It becomes sort of enforceable, for want of a better word, from July.
That's where I'm coming from, is that we have questions from this council at this point.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schramm.
Just a question in regard to the council community halls. If you remember in the last election, we were forbidden from using, well, not us, but the residents of those areas could not hold their consultation meetings there with candidates. So does that still apply, or is that an overreaction?
Yes, I think that's a good point. I remember myself, I think it's a good overreaction. It's a community hall, for goodness sake. I think, yes, I'd like to get some clarification on that. I think that'll be good.
I'll have to get clarification on that one. I wasn't aware what happened last time.
But it's usually not candidates or
It's the community.
But they should
I
have.
agree that community halls should not be used by individuals because they are council consultants. It might be an election thing in this chamber. Individual candidates should not be allowed, but if an organisation, like Federated Farmers wants to organise a candidate thing, they should be allowed to use the chamber.
Well, last year, you'll recall at Nomatana, Progress Nomatana, and we invited the mayoral candidates and also the council candidates, and we had to meet them up because we were told, or they were told, Progress Nomatana were told not to use the Nomatana hall. I find that ludicrous.
Yes, we're going to get some clarification on that. Thank you. Councillor Keir and then Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to trying to ensure that those who are permitted to use council communication facilities do so for legitimate purposes, I assume that also includes communications of the staff.
Yes, yes. And as I said before, I do know that the central government, they're really quite stringent on what you can do, what you can't do, which is very helpful for this as well. Because we don't want any staff to be landing themselves inadvertently in a fire. Yes.
You also need a clarification where an organisation is actually promoting a political team, whether they have the right to use council facilities.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clarification. Council business cards got an RDC address on them. Is it from the 1st July we can't use that through the RDC system?
No, because until the election's actually held, then it's still an additional address for elected councillors. We are still elected until such time. Thank you. But any queries like that would be good to seek clarification at some stage from the Chief Executive or from our governance team. So.
I'd like to do two.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm a bit concerned about how clear the answer was to Councillor Whitman's questions when this protocol applies, because some of the subsequent questions about applying to council staff. I know, for example, that during the election period, citizenship ceremonies are put on hold because there's the perception that the incumbent will be getting a higher profile through a ceremony of council. And if this applies from taking this vote, is a staff member engaged to write speeches for at official functions? I understand you ordered two of them this weekend, and speech notes have been prepared for me. So if we're going to get pedantic about this and picky about this, I think we need to be very clear on where we stand and where the staff stand. So I want absolute clarity around that, because in my view, this council needs to continue business as usual up until the election period officially starts. And I'd like to hear from someone like Warwick back as to answer the council initial question.
Yes, I'd hate to think we're just going to get so overly sensitive about something who might explain, it might be in the paper, or they might be interviewed on whatever. But it is business as usual. It is business as usual, but if it needs clarification. Chief, I think you've got a, just ready.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Very good question. First point from Councillor King, that staff protocols get compliant with that report, so that firmly outlines what staff requirements or how staff acts really around the use of council resources. Council resources not only mean staff, but they need buildings, correspondence statuses, all those types of things. That's clearly outlined there through guidance from the Office of the Auditor General. And leading up to the 3-month pre-election period, as you stated in July, it certainly is business as usual. However, with any election, we need to be, and elected heads need to be aware of the difference between business as usual or what actually electioneering. So we have actually formed a risk assessment group that's now made up of staff, and we are already looking at assessing different functions and events that the mayor has been attending. And the reason for that at the moment is to identify whether it's business as usual or not. We've actually shared our risk assessment with Bellevue region and Waikato region, a number of other local authorities that are going down that track. So we're very clear on what's should be happening and should be happening. And of course, those rules do change pre-election period. So it's really a matter of being very careful about what is business as usual in pre-election period and what is not. But we're going to start please, if you have any concerns or queries about attending events, etc., please let us know, and we can run it past the risk assessment group.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Una. I'm going to just now ask Una Secretary that the committee recommends to council to adopt the election and communications protocol for elected members. That's the attachment A. It's on attachment 1. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Thank you, Councillor Kent. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary. Thank you very much, Karen. Recommendation 3. Page 39. Alternative to the Whakarewa land treatment system. May I have a mover? Thank you. It's been moved, Councillor Sharan, it's been seconded, Councillor Ford, that the report alternatives to Whakarewa land treatment system be received. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Thank you. Not Dave. Good afternoon.
Thank you. stage where in the program, in the project program where we identified a second round of consultation with the public, with the wider public, because as you also know, we've been engaged with engaged stakeholder group with that to use that. So we had identified a second round of public engagement, wider public engagement. That's where we've got to. I've got a presentation to show you, another presentation, because this is an update for you. There's nothing really in the presentation that you haven't seen before, but probably seen most of the slides before in fact. There are some issues that would have arisen during the interviewing period since the last time of presentations we were back in, I think in October last year.
Presentation, and can I ask, approximately how long, just so I can get a gauge on that?
Oh,
Thank you.